Happy to have y'all here. Thank y'all for joining us for this election Get Out the Vote rally. I'm Eric. I am a national staffer who supports chapters in the Northeast as well as the National Electoral Committee. And one of the best parts of my job is just seeing the scope of work done by chapters. It's something that's really inspiring and I think will hopefully be inspiring to you. These are all campaigns in their final weeks that we really encourage you to join. And so let's get right into it, starting off with Fatima Iqbal-Zubair.
All right. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, good. Yeah, so thank you, Eric, for putting this together. Okay, so Andres Guardado, Frederick Williams, Dijon Kesey. These are 3 Black boys that died within the past 3 months in my district. Dijon Kesey was 1 block outside my district in South LA. 54% high school grads, 11.7% college grads, 25% of California's refineries, including the largest refinery in the West Coast, the highest rate of neighborhood oil drilling in LA County, communities with 4 times the eviction rate of the rest of LA County, and 90% people of color. My opponent is the second biggest acceptor of corporate money, blocked a bill to end qualified immunity, got a 22% this year on the Sierra Club report card, is a former cop that has gotten the 5th most in police donations. What's happening in South LA in my district, which is Compton, Watts, Wilmington, is a picture of systemic racism. It's happening because of people like my opponent who are in office, who buy elections. The truth is this is happening in California as a whole, right? We have communities that don't have clean water, that have segregated neighborhoods, that have schools that are really low quality all over California. And of course, a high rate of homelessness. The truth is we can be a leader again. We have led before and we can be a leader again. California right now has the largest wealth gap and income inequality gap, but we have the most wealth. We're a country almost as a state. We have that much wealth. Yet we have the largest wealth gap and we have the highest rate of homelessness. We can be a leader again in expanding our democracy, passing publicly funded elections, ranked choice voting, passing an even more progressive tax code. And we can end housing, end the homelessness crisis. We can pass the Green New Deal and have one of the best education systems in the entire state. I encourage everyone to also vote yes on Prop 15, but over 95% of funding is actually at the state level. And these things are all achievable. I'm a public school teacher, that worked in Watts, and I saw the systemic racism firsthand, first in Watts, which is in my district, but it's really, as I mentioned in the beginning of when I started talking, it's really all over my district. I'm also an immigrant and a mother to a son with special needs, with autism, and so I had to also fight for him in our community, going through the public school system. If elected, I would be the first Muslim and the first South Asian woman ever elected to the California state legislature. Our movement is honored to be endorsed by DSA, National Senator Bernie Sanders, and other progressive organizations. We have actually given our opponent his biggest challenge in the primary since he has ever held a seat. And we are ready to really win this in November. But really our biggest need right now is talking to voters. In a season that in the time of a pandemic, we can't knock on doors. That would be ideal. But talking to voters is what our corporate opponents are not doing. And that's really what we need in our campaign. So what I ask is, I'm going to put my phone bank link to sign up, but we need you to sign up for at least 1 shift between now and election day, to defeat my opponent and to create a more equitable California, especially for communities of color and those that are living on the margins and really struggling right now. And so thank you for this opportunity. And I do hope you guys sign up. I'll drop the phone bank link in the chat and in the Facebook Live, and thank you, Eric.
All right, great. And next up, we've got Jackie Fielder.
Hello, hi everyone. So cool to see amazing candidates. I got my DSA jacket on too. Thanks, Eric, for the inspiration. Thank you all for hopping on. I'm so excited to be sharing our campaign. A little bit about me. I'm an educator at San Francisco State, been organizing the San Francisco Public Bank Coalition here for the past few years. It was really in 2016 when my relatives were facing off with militarized law enforcement at Standing Rock that I started to follow the money. And that's when I began organizing for divestment all the way in San Francisco to make sure that our city's finances were not supporting infrastructure projects like the Dakota Access Pipeline, like private prisons, weapons manufacturing, all these different industries that have nothing to do with our communities, and actually make life difficult, or even enact violence on our communities across the world. This campaign is about just that. It's about making sure that our economy works for everyday people and not just the wealthy few and corporations. I'm running on, as so many amazing candidates in this race, I mean, in this chat, a Green New Deal for California, expanded public school funding, real tenant protections and the ability to enforce them, especially in this pandemic, running for a $100 billion California Housing Emergency Fund. Our opponent is the most real estate-backed politician in the entire California legislature and has long sided with police unions here locally when it wasn't popular to actually support Black Lives Matter. At a time when Black and brown people were getting gunned down by the San Francisco Police Department, he was advocating for expanding resources for a police department without reforms made. And he was actually on the other side of the local DSA chapter when we were organizing an opposition campaign to the local San Francisco Police Officers Association because they wanted to write their own dangerous use of force policy. We were outspent 5-1 and we won. We also, in that same election cycle, won a universal right to counsel for anyone facing eviction in San Francisco. It has disproportionately benefited low-income people and Black and brown tenants here in the city. So I seek to expand our, definitely our representation of democratic socialists in California, but also, there's only one renter in the entire state legislature. If we want any more protections, we need to elect people who are not beholden to the real estate lobby. We did a poll, an internal poll about a month ago, and it showed that this race is pretty movable and it's wide open. And if voters hear positive messages about both me and my opponent, we lead by 1 percentage point. If they hear negative messages about both of us, we actually lead by 8 percentage points. So it's entirely movable. There's still 2/3 of voters who have yet to submit their ballots. And those are the people that we aim to turn out for the next 12 days. This is entirely within our grasp, even though a year ago when I launched this campaign, it was something of a really long shot, but we've been able to get the support of a number of labor unions, especially the California teachers. It's one reason why the charter school lobby has opened up an independent expenditure committee for my opponent just yesterday. And also proud to be backed by the San Francisco Tenants Union and a number of other housing justice organizations. Thank you all so much for throwing down for our DSA candidates. Amazing folks like Fatima and other people. I'm so honored to be among you all. Thank you. And I'll put a link to our website.
Thank you. And next up, we've got Nithya Raman.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me today. I am running for Los Angeles City Council in District 4, and I'm really, really excited to be sharing this space with all of you today. I ran for City Council because I really wanted to see a change in our local city. I'm an urban planner by training. I've spent most of my career in the nonprofit sector. I spent the first part of my career working in India with people who lived in slums and informal settlements who were fighting for really basic necessities like running water and toilets. Here in Los Angeles, I've done a lot of work on the issue of homelessness. And I kept bumping up against a city council that really was not using their incredible powers, and they do have incredible powers here, to move our city in a more just direction, in a more humane direction. LA City Council is pretty unique across America. Each district is absolutely enormous. We have over 250,000 residents in each district. So that's a third the size of congressional district. And historically, we've had incredibly low voter turnout in municipal elections. And because of that low voter turnout, in many ways, the policies coming out of our city hall, where almost every politician speaks a very progressive language, because this is a very progressive city, there's just an incredible gap that I've seen between the very progressive values that residents hold, the needs of residents, and what actually comes out of City Hall. In our district, we have 180,000 registered voters. In the last election that brought the incumbent into power, 24,000 people voted. And the people who voted were for the most part not reflective of the incredible diversity of this city. They were homeowners, they are wealthier people, and I think in many ways, the policies that have come out of City Hall have not been the kind of policies that we need to stave off the many, many crises that we're facing right now, especially our housing and homelessness crisis, which has been worsened as a result of COVID, our tenants' rights policies, which have never had the scaffolding to actually enable residents to really kind of exercise their basic rights as tenants. What we've done here in this campaign has been to really get the word out about municipal politics and the power of city council, and to talk extensively about why our city council matters for every person who's voting in this presidential election. Because for the first time, our municipal elections and our presidential elections are overlapping. So we knew we had the opportunity to get the word out to a whole bunch of voters who we knew would be at the polls, but didn't know about how important city council was and how much it could help them, how much it could help their neighbors, how much it could help every resident of this city thrive. And in that, we work closely with our local, with DSA LA to do a huge number of door knocking in the primary. They helped us knock on 83,000 doors in the district, which is more than any city council campaign in history. And in this general election where we can't do door knocking, we've been writing postcards and phone banking, and DSA has been an incredible partner in all of this. So we're very, very happy to be here sharing this space with you. And in these last 11 days, as we are pushing to get out to as many voters as possible, we just are so grateful for the support that we've had, and excited to keep working with you. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. And next up, we've got Konstantine Anthony.
Thank you so much for putting this together. A lot of people, you're probably wondering why DSA National has a candidate from Burbank, California on with this call. I mean, there's only 100,000 residents here, and we've got people from LA and San Francisco and Baltimore, bigger cities that have a lot more influence. Why this small town? Why Burbank? You know, it's incredible to see the outsized voice that this city has. For many of you who don't know, it's called the media capital of the world. A lot of movies, a lot of television shows, animation, video games, they're designed, written, and created and produced right here in the city of Burbank. Imagine electing an actual Marxist to the city council here in Burbank, California, and how much that can resonate, not only throughout the country, but around the world, to show the people who are making the media that is consumed by everyone on the planet that here in their hometown, we are putting a democratic socialist in power to bring all of the things that the candidates who you've already talked to and that you'll hear from later are trying to push for. Real changes to the police, not just reform, but defunding, that, you know, investing in our unhoused neighbors and putting money back into schools and building the affordable housing and creating the jobs that everyone can thrive at, increasing union membership, raising the minimum wage. These are all huge, huge, impactful policies that we're all running on. And if you help me, along with the other candidates, get into these positions of power, we'll have a voice to really bring that change to the masses, to people who don't really understand what democratic socialism is or why this progress is so important right now in this moment in history for this country. So please, I'll put my information in the chat as well. And, you know, donate I believe I have the lowest individual maximum donation of any of the candidates because it's such a small town, but we can win this thing here, and that message will resonate everywhere, and it helps all the other candidates as well. So thank you, DSA National, for putting this together. And thank you to our local DSA LA for endorsing me in the first place and all of the other candidates.
Thank you. Next up, we've got Franca Muller Paz.
Hey everybody, my name is Franca. I'm a teacher in Baltimore City. I've been teaching for 10 years and I'm excited to be here. So thank you so much DSA for the endorsement and the support. We're trying to fight and we've been fighting for years trying to get more funding into our rec centers across Baltimore. Some of you may not know, but over the last few years, our rec centers have been gutted, closed down. Some of them are on life support. They are in similar conditions to our schools. We have over 70 schools in our city that don't have air conditioning. Often our schools need to close down when it's days that are too cold because of issues around heating. Our kids can't even drink water out of many of our schools' water systems because they still have lead in them after decades of knowing that the lead is there. So we have been fighting a really long time trying to make sure we can get better funding for our young people, because we know that in a city that has to deal with the violent loss of so many, that something we could really do to bring down crime in our city is invest in our young people, make sure they have real opportunities, make sure they have the opportunities to grow that they deserve, so they can have real options and the ability to really make these tough choices that they need to make. It is a heartbreaking, it's been a heartbreaking week for us. One of my students, her sister was violently taken from us over the weekend. She was just walking down to go get some soda from the corner and was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And every day that goes by that we don't do more to take care of our young people, to make sure that our communities are invested in, to make sure that there is the kind of economic stability in our community so people don't have to turn to the kind of industries that put their lives and potentially their families' lives into danger, is an absolute shame. We need to do more to make sure that we're fighting for the lives of the residents of Baltimore City, and we're excited to take that fight to City Hall. So thank you so much again, DSA, for having me here to be able to talk about our campaign. If you want to jump on board and support us, we need you. We could win this campaign by 5 votes. We know it's going to be super close, but we are picking up lots of steam as a first third-party candidate to really be seen as a serious challenger in Baltimore City Council race. We received the endorsement from the Metro AFL-CIO, which is the largest council of unions in the state of Maryland that represents over 150,000 workers. This is the first time they have ever supported in their existence a third-party candidate. We have the support of the teachers union, of the plumbers and steam fitters, of carpenters, of so many unions and working people, because we're fighting for the kind of wages that people need to be able to thrive, not just survive in our city. We're tired of that. We deserve so much more. We deserve housing, dignified housing that people can really make sure that they can support their families in. We need municipal internet, because we know that in our city, 1 in every 2 Black and brown families are disconnected. They don't have the ability to get online. In a time when our kids have to be online to get school, if 1 in every 2 Black and brown households don't have meaningful internet access, that means they're not getting the education that they have a right to. So there's a lot of work that we need to do. We know we can win as a grassroots campaign that takes no developer money, no corporate money. We have raised over $115,000 by small donations, the support from our unions. So we know we can win this fight, but we can't win it without you. So please check out our donate link. Visit our website to learn more. And no matter where you are, whether you're in Baltimore, Maryland, across the US, you can support our campaign by jumping on the phone, sending texts. There's so much you can do. And we've got just 12 days, a little bit less, to make it happen. So hope you can join us. And again, my name is Franca Muller Paz, and I'm running for Baltimore City Council, District 12.
All right, thank you. And for those joining us on Facebook Live, we apologize for the technical difficulties. We will have the rest of the video that y'all have missed so far up tomorrow. Next up, we have got some members of Portland DSA talking about Preschool for All.
Hi, I'm John. Thank you so much for having me on. So, what is Preschool for All? Preschool for All is a ballot measure that would tax the rich and create free universal preschool for all 3 and 4-year-olds in the Portland, Oregon area. Preschool for All would raise wages substantially, with pay on par with kindergarten teachers for the lead in each classroom and at least $19 per hour for all the other childcare workers. And that minimum wage of $19 an hour is pegged to 135% of the Portland minimum wage, so it'll automatically go up in the future. In addition, we included new protections for workers organizing new unions within childcare facilities. Most importantly, this entire program is funded by a local income tax on only the wealthiest, people making more than about $150,000 per year. So 92% of residents will pay nothing, and preschool will be free for everyone going forward, just like K through 12 education. So why am I so excited about this campaign? In addition to the obviously great idea of expanding the right of education down by another 2 years from kindergarten to include 3 and 4-year-olds, this is going to be a massive redistribution of wealth, which has been our primary motivation from day one. If you do the accounting math to convert the future stream of tax payments into an amount today, this program is the equivalent of moving about $3 billion out of the hands of the capitalist class and into the hands of the working class. The money goes into the pockets of parents who no longer have to pay private tuition, and into the pockets of childcare workers who are finally paid a living wage. I'm going to repeat that number because it's really hard to fully appreciate how much that is. $3 billion. Portland is not a huge city, so this is going to be a life-changing amount of money for a large portion of the population. This is a hugely intersectional issue. Care work is disproportionately performed by women, and by women of color in particular. And that's a big part of the reason why care work has always been so underpaid. So by finally funding childcare at a justifiable level, we aren't just helping the working class, we're simultaneously dismantling racial capitalism and patriarchy. This is very much a grassroots DSA-driven campaign. The entire idea of taxing the rich to fund universal preschool was developed in local DSA meetings starting 3 years ago, and the campaign has been heavily powered by DSA ever since. Almost all the core organizers met each other through DSA, and the campaign has grown wildly popular from there, with dozens of endorsements from unions and community organizations, and over 600 people volunteering when we were in our signature gathering phase. So how can you help now? The most important is a sign up for phone banking. We have phone banking shifts every Saturday, Sunday, and Wednesday, and more are being scheduled all the time. So you can see the link up in the chat, just a few comments up. Go to tinyurl.com, P4All dialer to sign up for phone banking shifts. As others have mentioned, there's not much time because so many people have already voted by mail. The election is basically 1/3 over already. So the sooner you can hop on one of those phone banking shifts, the better. It's super easy. All you need is a phone, a computer, or a tablet, and your phone number remains private as you're making the calls. No preparation is necessary. You just show up for the Zoom call at the scheduled time and we'll tell you everything we need to know. And of course, the other thing you can do to help is to donate. You'll find that link above too. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Next up, we've got some members of Memphis DSA talking about Marquita Bradshaw's campaign.
Hey, y'all.
Hey, y'all. My name's Jan Lentz. I'm one of the co-chairs of the Memphis Mid-South DSA chapter.
And I'm Michael Antonio Jones. I'm the other co-chair of the Memphis Mid-South DSA chapter. And we're here to talk about Marquita Bradshaw and her historic campaign for U.S. Senate in Tennessee.
I first met Marquita about a year ago. She was working on the campaign of one of the candidates we had endorsed for city council. And she was sitting in my living room just across from where we're sitting tonight. And she told me that she was going to be running for U.S. Senate and that she was going to win. And she was, so quiet and calm about it that it shocked me when she said we're going to win. And this year in the primary in August, She won the primary on less than $25,000 against the Democratic establishment-backed candidate who had raised more than $2.1 million and ended up coming in third. She's continuing to surprise people with the way that she's able to do so much with so little. Some of those achievements.
Yeah, like she's surprising people like Bernie Sanders, AOC, Ayanna Pressley, Our Revolution, Cori Bush. Like these folks are seeing the movement that's being built in Tennessee, the movement that's happening across the state. I mean, there's a reason why all 5 chapters of Tennessee DSA endorse Marquita. It's because we see that she is a person who understands the struggles that most regular folk have been living through. She's a single mother. She understands that a single mother spends $1 a different way than a rich man does. And that's because she's advocating for healthy and safe communities. She's advocating for the Green New Deal, Medicare for all, because she understands the struggle that people in Tennessee have faced when Republicans refused to expand Medicare in the state and rule hospitals close. And so, we see that there's a need for a new type of leadership in the state, a woman of impeccable moral character, someone who knows what needs to be done and is willing to shake all, strictures of party. She's going above what norms for the party are here in Tennessee. And there's a reason why there's grassroots support for Marquita, and she's not getting outside help that other candidates have gotten.
To this date, the Democratic establishment has given her $0 in funding. That actually doesn't seem to be crippling her campaign, but we really need grassroots support. So some of the things that you could do are donate to her campaign, whatever you can. She will do more with $1 than any other candidate that you could find out there. We're doing it every day here in Memphis and across the state. But also we host weekly phone banks, 3 times a week phone banks, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And we have those shared to our Memphis Mid-South DSA Facebook page. There's a mobilized link where you can sign up and get involved. She's reaching out to people and reaching across, not just across the aisle, but reaching people in a different way than any other candidate ever has in Tennessee. And she's bringing people together. Republicans that vote for Trump are also excited to vote for her because she appeals to them on a real values level. And we're excited to be supporting her and hope that we can have all of your support in her historic campaign.
Come on aboard, y'all. We're trying to make history. Let's do it together.
Solidarity.
Thank you. Next up, we've got member of DSA San Francisco talking about Dean Preston's campaign. Hello, Brace, if you're there.
Hey, yeah. Oh, I got to do this myself. Hold on. I start the video. There we go. Hello, my name is Brace. I am in DSA San Francisco. I also look like Dean Preston. Not exactly, but somewhat. We both have glasses and are Jewish. He is my district supervisor. District supervisor is like a city council member, except we get a city and county. I met Dean in 2016 when he was running against the lady that's our mayor now, whose name is London Breed, which is, I gotta say, great name, terrible lady. Back when she was a supervisor for our district. He lost that race by like a couple thousand, no, like 400 votes or something like that. Later, basically, me and a bunch of other people in DSA San Francisco, which essentially campaigned for him sort of in roundabout ways. He was the one who wrote Prop F for us. We worked with him really closely on a lot of like tenant legislation. Went up to advocate for the repeal of Costa-Hawkins in Sacramento with them. And then last year he was able to win my district's supervisor race from the lady that was appointed by the mayor, this awful woman named Valley Brown, which, by the way, all these names, by the way, the people I'm mentioning are technically cooler names than Dean Preston, but bear with me. He's a pretty good guy. Anyways, Dean fucking rocks. He's worked very closely with our entire chapter on a lot of different stuff. He was the, for those who don't know his background, He was the leader or the founder of the largest tenants' rights group in all of California. He wrote a lot of crazy legislation to fight back against landlords. The man is a fucking psycho. 1 minute 30, that's like halfway through. I thought it was longer than that. Anyways, we basically narrowly won the city council race last time, and we had a lot of opposition then. I think after about 6 days of counting votes, 2 days where they were tied at 27 votes both days, he finally won by a few hundred votes, only to have the actual election, because last one was a special one, roll around this time. And this one is insane because all these billionaires, last time they hit him pretty hard. This time they put $4 million against him in a city council race, which is, I mean, even for San Francisco, fucking huge. All these bankers and landlords really don't like him, including Pritzker from Chicago, all these real sons of bitches. Anyways, they got a lot of money against him, and they're saying all kinds of crazy shit about him. The thing is that most people in San Francisco do associate his name with one thing, which is tenants' rights legislation. He also is a new transfer tax that's sponsoring, or excuse me, that's going to tax real estate transfers and pay back people's back rent during COVID and build 10,000 units of social housing after this. Anyways, I got to roll out of here soon. I don't know if I did a very good job of explaining it. He's my city councilor. I like him a lot. I don't like anybody else in San Francisco city politics whatsoever. So, you know, it's high praise from me. Anyways, you can go to votedean.com / I think just go to votedean.com and hit get involved. There's also a donate button there. Anyways, thank you. Vote Dean if you're in San Francisco.
Thank you. Next up, we've got members of Metro DC DSA, the Montgomery County branch, talking about no on Measure B.
Hi, I'm Nicole. I'm a member of Metro DC DSA and the Montgomery County branch of Metro DC DSA. I'm here today representing our campaign against ballot Measure B. Ballot Measure B is a reactionary tax measure that would freeze our county property tax rate put on the ballot by a right-wing political fixture in our county with the help of some of the wealthiest people in our county. So essentially, if ballot question B passes, it would force huge cuts to our public services, and it would force these cuts on working class families, and force cuts to union jobs. Meanwhile, the wealthiest people in our county would receive tax cuts. And meanwhile, this also doesn't provide any sort of relief to maybe more working class homeowners. So Montgomery County DSA learned about this ballot measure last spring, and we immediately just realized that unless people organize against it, this ballot measure would pass. So that's exactly what we did. We made around 15,000 calls against ballot measure B, and we've been making calls on Wednesdays and Saturdays since we got the ballot measure number, ballot letter. We also helped jumpstart a coalition of local progressive groups, unions, as well as even our local PTA to organize against ballot question B. So to join us, I will drop the link on how to phone bank against ballot question B. We're also having a special Halloween phone bank on October 31st with Gabe Acevedo and Vaughn Stewart, who are both DSA members and members of the Maryland House of Delegates. I guess the final thing I want to say before I finish up is that at a time like this, our county, as municipalities across the country, are seeing huge cuts, are seeing huge budget shortfalls. And the way that we need to balance those budget shortfalls is by increasing taxes on the wealthy who are benefiting from this coronavirus recession. That's why we were campaigning against ballot question B, because it would prohibit us from raising taxes in the wealthy or in our county who already pay the least taxes. So thank you, and thank you to DSA National for putting this event together.
Thank you. Next up, we've got Jovanka Beckles.
Hello. Oh, all right. Can you all hear me?
Yep.
Oh, wonderful. Greetings, comrades, siblings. I'm Jovanka Beckles. Thank you so very much for having me. I work as a children's mental health professional, advocating for children and families to get the resources they need to thrive physically, emotionally, and socially. I served 2 terms on the Richmond City Council, where we passed a $15 an hour minimum wage and rent control, and won $100 million in new taxes on Chevron. I've spent my career in politics fighting for racial, economic, and environmental justice and the empowerment of working people. Pardon me. I'm running for the AC Transit Board of Directors in the San Francisco East Bay, which oversees the public bus system, serving 1.5 million people in California's East Bay. The public bus is vital to the working class, especially its most vulnerable members. AC Transit primarily serves lower income working people and people of color. The public bus service has also been a major source of good union jobs for working class people of color. ATU, the union representing AC Transit drivers and mechanics, is 80% Black. But public transit is currently in danger. Ridership is way down due to the pandemic, and billionaire privatizers and corporate politicians want to use this as an excuse to cut budgets and service. Meanwhile, rideshare companies like Uber and Lyft are working to replace public transit while pouring millions of dollars into Proposition 22 to legalize the shameful exploitation of their workers. I'm running for AC Transit Board because the transit workers of ATU Local 192 asked me to run. They know our public transportation shouldn't be moving backwards in the middle of a pandemic and economic depression. Fighting climate change and inequality means fighting to defend and expand public transit and to make it free for all its riders. And with greed and gridlock paralyzing Congress, we'll need to build the Green New Deal in state houses and city halls, starting with expanded fare-free transit. We'll fund it with taxes on corporations and the ultra-rich. But this fight is bigger than public transit. It's about standing with workers and fighting for public services that the working class deserves. It's about building a movement to take on the ultra-rich, take back our wealth, and give our planet a fighting chance. I'm proud to be in this fight with you all to build a world that puts people over profit. I'm proud to stand in solidarity with you all to help build a world that works for all of us. You can learn more about our campaign for justice for transit justice at jovankaforactransit.org. Solidarity, comrades.
Solidarity. Next up, we have got a member of Lexington DSA talking about Arnold Farr's campaign.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Yes, I'm sorry, obviously because of campaign finance laws in our area, Arnold couldn't join us tonight, but I'm really appreciative of the opportunity to tell you a little bit about his campaign and why we decided to support him. And if anyone is in the Lexington area, why you should definitely look him up and consider supporting him and most definitely voting for him. So our chapter is a relatively young, I don't mean in the ages of our members, but young just in the time that, you know, we've been in existence, a relatively young and relatively small, but definitely rapidly growing chapter. And so this was our first foray into electoral politics. And I have to say that when talking about, you know, what race we might get involved in, this campaign, Arnold Farr's campaign for school board, was a no-brainer. Arnold is a professor at University of Kentucky, a professor of philosophy. His research interests include Marxism, critical theory, philosophy of race, philosophy of liberation, things that definitely, it would be an understatement to say, have aligned him, with where we see issues. He's also, I should have said first and foremost, one of our members. So another reason that it was a no-brainer. But anyway, I would say that the national endorsement has been so appreciated, so gratifying, and really so meaningful for us to have been able to assist in getting that for him, because we are so sort of new to this particular game. And the support, again, is so appreciated. I would say the main reason that Arnold needs to be elected to the school board is that his view on everything is definitely through the lens of equity and justice, and his priority is making public schools the best that they can be for every student. He also really prioritizes transparency and accountability, making sure that every decision he makes is made in public and that the community holds him accountable. And this, this differs with some of the other folks that we see running for, places of power and decision making. If Arnold is not elected, there will be no person of color on our school board in Lexington, Kentucky. And that is unacceptable and unimaginable to us. Our student population is greater than 49%. It's over 49% racially and ethnically diverse. And 50% of our students live at or below the poverty line. These kids really deserve representation, and Arnold cares about these students and their families and wants to bring them into decision-making processes and definitely make public schools the best that they can be. We don't have a lot of remote volunteer opportunities. Our members have just been showing up to lit drops weekend after weekend. We participated, our members participated in texting with the campaign. And but you can always go to Farr for Fayette and check out that donation button, because that's always appreciated and still needed. And just thank you again for the support and the opportunity.
Thank you. Next up, we've got Greg Kassar.
Good evening, y'all. I'm Greg Kassar. I'm on the Austin City Council, and I am here maybe to talk a little bit about how, especially for those of y'all in chapters in the South, how doing some of this work in the electoral realm to bring your members and folks from the left into office and then continuing organizing afterwards can make really significant change in a small amount of time. And we're certainly not there yet in Austin, but when I started off as a community and immigrants' rights and labor organizer just a few years ago, pushing against City Hall, we had a city council where we still had a lot of working people working for the city making $7.25 an hour, where we saw giant hotel developers getting tax breaks even though they were violating labor law, where we had a police association contract that blocked all forms, so many different forms of accountability and transparency. And then with just some really significant and real local organizing, we were able to elect progressives and people on the left. I myself am a DSA member. And in just a short period of time, just a few city budgets, we got that wage up to $15 an hour. And now we're talking about real increases in union density and what our path to $20 an hour is. We unanimously blocked, for the first time in our city's history, a renewal of that police union contract and created an independent Office of Police Oversight. We just in this budget moved tens of millions of dollars away from mass incarceration and policing to real community service, into housing people experiencing homelessness, into mental health care for our community. We were told time and time again when I was organizing in the immigrants' rights movement that despite Austin's progressive values, there was nothing we could do to slow down deportations. And here we organized alongside DSA members and allied groups to set up the first publicly funded deportation defense fund in our city's history, and new policing policies that really put just mess with the gears of the deportation machine here in Texas. We decriminalized homelessness. We decriminalized being poor. We decriminalized and ended all arrests and fines for personal possession of marijuana. And our opposition is continuing to fight us and increase their attacks on us this election cycle, because they know that we're not slowing down, that we're just continuing to build that organizing capacity by having an inside-outside game that we can build between our local DSA chapter, allied organizations, community groups, directly impacted working class folks, and those of us on the inside helping drive those campaigns. And so for those of you all over the country, in this moment, I myself was a co-chair of Bernie's campaign here in Texas. And in those moments where the electoral organizing can feel so paralyzing or so limiting, in this right now, when so many people are paying attention to politics at the ballot box, politics in their workplace, where they're reading about this stuff, it's a real important moment for us to either keep our momentum going or to get those folks elected into office that are DSA members or allies, because you can really show what governing from the left can look like, and that builds us up for even more wins. So thank you all for all the time you're spending volunteering across the country in solidarity.
Thank you. Next up, we've got a member of Boulder DSA talking about no eviction without representation.
Hey everyone, my name's Rui Arengo. I am the campaign chair for the No Eviction Without Representation citizen-led ballot initiative here in Boulder, Colorado. Thanks so much for having me. The No Eviction Without Representation initiative, its measure 2B on the ballot, would establish the most comprehensive and aggressive anti-eviction program in the nation right here in Boulder. It will provide free legal counsel regardless of age, income, or immigration status for every single tenant, every single renter in the city of Boulder that experiences eviction. And it will provide that very same group of folks with rental assistance money to make rent if they need it. We managed to get this on the ballot, even though the city council refused to put us on their own. We had to gather signatures in the middle of a pandemic, but we still got it on there. We're really excited. We think it is going to improve the material conditions of the working class here in Boulder. And to make it even sweeter, it is going to be paid for in its entirety by an excise tax on landlords who operate their rental units in the city of Boulder. So landlords are going to pay for it. And in addition, there's going to be working class oversight of the program with the tenants committee of 5 people who must be renters within the city of Boulder and cannot own any property, who are going to be in charge of steering the direction of the program. So we're really excited about this, and we think we are definitely going to win. I don't know if they're on the call anymore, but for the folks from the San Francisco DSA, Dean Preston and Jen Snyder, who authored and ran successfully the original No Eviction Without Representation campaign, I would like to give y'all a huge fucking shout out, because you inspired us and we took the fight here to Boulder. And I'm hopeful that in the future, other folks are going to take the fight to other cities. If you want to hit us up on social media and bump us, that would be great. On Twitter, we're at NEWR, newer_Boulder. Otherwise, it is just Newer Boulder. And I must say, we are in a really good position financially and in terms of volunteers with the campaign here in Boulder. I never thought I'd be saying that. So I implore all of y'all, if you have any money or time or labor to donate, I would implore you to donate to the campaigns of our comrades, because I think we're really in a good place here in Colorado. With that being said, I think that's it. Yeah, we're gonna take the landlords to the cleaners. They're totally unprepared. We caught them on the back foot, and we're gonna win and seize some real power for renters and working people here in the city of Boulder. So solidarity forever.
All right, thank you. Next up, we have got a member of Inland Empire DSA to talk about California Proposition 15.
Thanks, Eric. Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Matt Milholland. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I'm one of the co-chairs of Inland Empire DSA. And yeah, I mean, the coronavirus pandemic has really highlighted the massive economic inequality in the United States. The working class, particularly in communities of color, has faced unprecedented levels of unemployment and evictions. Meanwhile, in California, 165 billionaires have seen their wealth increase by 175 billion since March. That's why over a dozen California DSA chapters are fighting to tax the rich by campaigning for California's Proposition 15, the Schools and Communities First Act. Prop 15 is a crucial piece of legislation that, if passed, will reclaim $10 to $12 billion a year for California's public schools and services. By closing a commercial property tax loophole that has benefited only a fraction of corporations and wealthy investors for decades. Huge companies like Disney, Chevron, and Apple are getting away with paying taxes based on what those properties were worth decades ago, essentially stealing from school children and people in need of public services. Prop 15 is a major step towards redistributing the wealth that corporations have been hoarding for years back to the multiracial working class. This is why our chapters are proud to stand side by side in this struggle with labor unions, community organizers, and millions of ordinary Californians who are fighting back against the capitalist class and their austerity agenda. Over the course of the campaign, our statewide effort has held phone banks with hundreds of DSA members calling thousands of voters. Those phone banks are a lot of fun too. We've been joined by socialist candidates, office holders, labor leaders, and comrades from all across the country to get out the vote. I mean, just this past Friday, we had Senator Nina Turner on, and she got all of us really fired up before making calls. The phone banks run daily from 5:30 to 8:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and we'll be holding them through Thursday, October 29th. We've already called over 50,000 voters, but our phone bank attendance is slipping. We need the help of every single one of you on this call. If you're ready to fight back with us, then RSVP for our phone banks right now by clicking the link in the chat. Calling voters is especially important right now because the big corporate opponents of Prop 15 are dumping millions into blatantly false attack ads. We need to call voters and set the record straight. As California goes, so goes the nation. A major win here could mean a new era for progressive taxation in the United States. So RSVP now to make calls or donate to help us tax the rich and win the funding our schools and communities deserve. Thanks, everyone.
All right, thank you. Next up, we have got a member of Sacramento DSA talking about Measure C.
Hi, yeah. Sacramento has had some of the highest rent increases per year in the nation for the last few years. And even now with COVID, which has done some strange things to certain rental markets, we have seen Sacramento rents continue to climb. This has led to things like the unhoused population of Sacramento County increasing by 52% over the last 2 years. Measure C, which was written with the help of Dean Preston, would start to address the precarity facing many Sacramento renters in their communities by establishing strong rent control in the city with just cause eviction protections and an elected rent board. Under Measure C, rent increases would be directly tied to the increase in consumer price index and capped at most 5% per year versus a 10% max currently in place statewide. In addition, the just cause eviction protections will protect tenants from being thrown out just because the landlord wants to raise the rent of the unit, and also includes relocation assistance for no-fault evictions, such as the unit being taken off the market. The elected rent board, meanwhile, would be there to arbitrate disputes between landlords and tenants that might otherwise have to go to court or remain unaddressed, and includes, and it also gives Sacramento DSA a chance to build power in the city by working to elect socialists to the board after Measure C passes. Excuse me. Our chapter has been fighting to get Measure C and real rent control on the ballot since 2017. Sacramento DSA was one of the biggest volunteer signature gatherers and has been working to drive the campaign forward ever since. Meanwhile, our city council and mayor have made every effort to keep Sacramento from being able to vote on rent control. First, trying to reach a compromise with the previous coalition and to take the ballot out of consideration, and then even going as far as bringing a lawsuit against one of the signatories of the ballot initiative that was only overturned on appeal, and thus we were able to get on the November ballot. Their efforts failed, as obviously, and even proved so unpopular that we were able to help get elected new city council member Katie Valenzuela, who was running partly on their support of our measure, Measure C and real rent control. Now, thankfully, because of this appeal, because we're on the ballot, we have a chance to win real renter protections, real protections for renters in Sacramento. But it is still going to be a tough fight. The opposition has obviously poured a lot of money into this. I can't count the number of mailers I've received that are just full of disinformation about what Measure C will do. But we've been running phone banks. We've been having some pretty strong volunteer efforts going so far. We've been running phone banks Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. and then at 6:30 p.m. And then this last week, we could really use all the help we can get to make sure that this passes in Sacramento, and we can keep helping to protect our communities and keep these communities in place, especially during COVID-19, which is just, yeah, as I said, causing all kinds of rent increase issues and just housing issues. So yeah, as I said, we're running the phone banks. I will post a link there to volunteer. We could really use any help we can get in these last few weeks, just to make sure we reach every voter in Sacramento. And then also we can donate to our campaign at yesonmeasurec.vote. All of that would be greatly appreciated as well. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Next up, we've got a member of Orlando DSA talking about Amendment 2 in Florida.
Sorry. Thank you, Eric. Thank you to National DSA, NEC for this. Very honored to be here. My name is Grayson Lanza. I am the co-chair of Orlando DSA. We are proud endorsers of Yes on Amendment 2 alongside Pinellas DSA, Tampa DSA, Palm Beach DSA, and the many other chapters throughout the state. And it's also nationally endorsed. What this Amendment 2 would raise the minimum wage gradually over the course of the next 5 years to $15 an hour for the entire state of Florida, no exception. The reason this is a big deal, is Florida is a big state. It's the third largest state in the country with 22 million people. It has about 7 million households. 50% of Florida households are working poor, which means that people are employed, work full time, and can still not meet their basic necessities. 14% of that 50% are under the federal poverty line, which is about 1 million households. Florida is an exceptionally poor state. It's known for the glitz and glamour, vacations, and retirees, but the reality is that the economy is so heavily revolved around low-wage labor, service industry, agricultural industry, and manufacturing industry. And so we have some of the most exploited workers in the entire country. And so getting the minimum wage raised would do such a material difference for people's lives. Here in Orlando, when the Disney Union got $15 minimum wage, the raises, when they started to kick in, literally moves people out of their cars into homes. It makes a big difference. And so our opposition is the Save Florida Jobs Incorporated. You can kind of guess what they argue. And then the National Restaurant and Lodging Association and the Florida Republican Party. Their opposition is predicated off of apparently we'd lose some jobs. We've lost a lot of jobs already here because of COVID. And regardless, there's no evidence that raising a minimum wage hurts jobs. In fact, there's lots of evidence that would help jobs. And in such a poor state, it would definitely do that here for Florida. So what we're doing is we're doing text banks. We're doing text banking right now. Please sign up to text bank with us. It's really easy. We're officially partnered. We're a part of the Florida for 15 campaign, which is a national campaign with Fight for 15 and the SEIU. And so we're text baking. Right now we're doing it, text bake parties every Sunday and Wednesday, but we're going to start doing it every day, hopefully starting next week. And you don't even have to do it during a text bank. You can do it while you're working. You can do it anytime between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. sending text. So just sign up on that form, volunteer with us. Yes on Amendment 2, Solidarity Comrades. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Next up, we've got a member of Metro DC DSA talking about 2 city council campaigns that they've endorsed there.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. All right. So yeah, my name is Stuart Carafa, he, him from Metro DC DSA. I'm here to talk about Janice Lewis George and Ed Lazaire, 2 DSA members and Democratic Socialists who are running for the DC Council. Both Janice and Ed have fought alongside our chapter as we push to raise taxes on the ultra-rich, defund the police, and reinvest in critical social services and expand and strengthen rent control in a way that has not been seen in DC since we first passed rent control in 1985. Our chapters endorsed Janice about it, or our chapter endorsed Janice about a year ago for the Democratic primary for the DC Council's Ward 4 seat. Over the course of that race, our chapter and Janice faced countless attacks from billionaire-backed charter school groups over our stances on defunding and demilitarizing the DC Police Department. This group, known as Democrats for Education Reform, sent mailer after mailer about Janice that referenced our chapter's questionnaire. And despite these ridiculous attacks, Janice won by 12 points anyway. Our chapter also endorsed Ed Lazaire, the former director of the progressive DC Fiscal Policy Institute. Ed and his family have lived in DC for over 30 years. He's fought on the front lines for decades to improve the lives of working class district residents. And these fights have been from the campaigns for paid family leave to raising the tip minimum wage. In all of these campaigns, Ed has been a fixture. Now, victories for both Ed and Janice would be incredible in their own right. DC hasn't had a Democratic Socialist on the council since Hilda Mason, I believe, left the council in the late 90s. And Hilda was a giant of the DC left. But victories for Janice and Ed would be even more critical for the future of DC and for the future of the working class in DC, because frequently council votes in DC go 8-5 to the fiscally conservative DC council members. Now with Janice and Ed on the council, we could flip those votes from 8-5 to 7-6. Just this past July, the council blocked legislation to raise taxes on the rich, to defund the police by any substantial amount, and to allocate more funding to affordable housing. We could have all of those things with victories for Janice and Ed. So thanks all for listening to me and to supporting our chapter in this fight to turn DC into less of a neoliberal hellscape. Thank you all, and good luck to everybody on your campaigns.
All right, thank you. Next up, we've got a member of Maine DSA talking about their People First Portland ballot initiatives.
Thank you, Eric, and thank you to the DSA National for including us in all of this. It's really humbling to hear about all of the things that are going across the country, and let me tell you about our little corner of it. So Portland, Maine, like Sacramento and like a lot of other places, is experiencing incredibly rapid gentrification. We've seen our rents go up by 50%. Our little city has seen thousands of people displaced over the last few years, thousands more are threatened. And there's been multiple campaigns to try to check these forces of gentrification, including a rent control campaign a few years back, a minimum wage campaign, paid sick leave campaign, and none of these have been successful. And so at the beginning of this year, the Maine DSA chapter got together and said, how can we really begin to have a conversation in the city about all of these interlocking issues: housing, housing, wages, economic justice, racial justice, environmental justice. Fortunately, Portland and Maine generally have strong traditions of referendums. And so what we decided to do was run 5 ballot initiatives that is, as closely as possible, replicated Bernie's platform at the local level, while making sure that each one materially advanced the interests of the working class. And so what we came up with was a $15 an hour minimum wage with additional protections for hazard conditions, a ban on facial surveillance, a local Green New Deal, which is 25% inclusionary zoning for affordable housing, together with the greenest building codes in the country, rent control, together with increased tenant protections, and really strict restrictions on Airbnbs. And, you know, we got all of these signatures together. We started in January. COVID hit, we definitely hit a bump there. And then we said, nope, we're gonna do this. These are issues that are even more important today than they were when we started this campaign. And thousands of residents came together to sign these petitions during the pandemic. And we got it on the ballot. And now we are very much in a fight. And so we have these 5 ballot initiatives, each one of which had broad popular support. A city poll found in August, and now they are being beaten back by what is probably going to be the most expensive local election in Maine's history by a factor of 2 or 3. All of the power structure of Portland that is in favor of gentrification is opposed to us. The city, the Chamber of Commerce, all of the big real estate developers, the city council, the corporate media, and still we're really holding our own, and we have a good chance of being able to win on at least one of these, maybe 2 or 3 of these, maybe even more. Our rent control fight 3 years ago has really set us up for a really, really robust push this year, where tenants are so threatened with evictions and rental increases and the housing insecurity that's come with COVID. So I'm humbled to be around all of these campaigns, doing all of these amazing things. But to all of those DSA folks out there who are saying, okay, I'd like to help with one campaign. Here is one where your efforts are really gonna help. Portland, Maine is the city of 67,000 people. You can reach out and really help us by joining our text banking and our phone banking teams. And so I'm just gonna put those in the chat right now, along with a link to our webpage. People First Portland is a really bold, direct democratic initiative to do an end run around the neoliberal forces that have taken over our community, and to show people this is what could be possible. And we've had an incredible response. And right now, the city council, together with the Chamber of Commerce, is planning to make referendums less possible in the future. So their natural response, of course, is to reduce the power of democracy. And a win here is really going to bolster both the cause of democratic socialism here in Portland, but also make sure that these sort of direct democratic actions are still possible. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. And so you've heard from 20 fantastic campaigns. I'm going to just post our endorsements link with our endorsements page. These are the most competitive ones, the ones you've heard from, along with one I'll shout out, David Paredes for school board in Fresno. David couldn't be here because he had a form, but these 21 are the most competitive nationally endorsed campaigns up for vote. So we encourage you to get involved with them, or to join us on the National Electoral Committee's volunteer task force. What this is a group where we're going to be building power long-term. We're going to be providing trainings like the phone and text banking training that an NEC member is about to present. And we're going to follow up, as well as have you get involved in the work of the National Electoral Committee, doing writing trainings. And you might notice the ballot initiatives email that a lot of y'all got. That was written by a volunteer with our support. And so we want to train folks up, build up the National Electoral Committee to do even more for all these endorsed campaigns, and then hopefully have folks bring back those skills and experience to their chapter to run their own electoral campaigns with our support, of course. So with that, I am going to end the Facebook live stream